The alien species was known as the Virox, neural siphoners, thought thieves. Their warships didn't carry soldiers, they carried linkers. Biodigital minds evolved to penetrate, interpret, and override enemy consciousness. They'd never lost a war. They didn't need to fire a shot. They'd broken military generals mid-sentence, extracted strategic vaults from the minds of sentient species before a battle even started. Entire revolts crushed by turning leaders into obedient husks. And now they had a human. He'd been captured on the edge of the Virox-controlled zone, lone reconnaissance pilot, unarmed, drifting inside a crippled stealth capsule. He was alive, intact, hooked into a tangle of outdated Earth bioneural hardware. They dragged him aboard their ship, restrained him, and prepared to breach. Their command node predicted a 5-second scan, primitive cortex, obvious language patterns, likely rich in military directives, psychological defenses expected to be minor, typical mammalian resistance, all assumptions based on previous non-human engagements. They initiated link, and everything went wrong. The lead Virox hacker dropped into his mental field first. It wasn't static, it was waiting. There was no scream, no spike of terror, no firewall, just a quiet corridor, endless, well-lit, no doors. A hallway made of remembered tile and humming bulbs. It looked human. The Virox floated through it. No threats, no encryption, just long silence and faint whispers in a tongue too soft to grasp. The second hacker followed. He found a chair in the middle of the hall. On it sat a boy, maybe 6 years old, laughing. He was coloring in a picture of a house burning. They tried to push deeper. That's when the walls closed in. The hall flickered, walls melting into war zones. Faces of the dead, then lovers, then strangers, then all of them spoke at once. The lead Virox reeled. It wasn't a memory, it was constructive memory bleed. Human minds weren't built like networks. They weren't linear. They were associative, recursive, non-Euclidean maps of emotion stacked on top of logic, warped by trauma and shaped by belief. And this one was active. It was aware. "Hello," it said, a voice, not the human's vocal cords. His mind, "Welcome to my favorite nightmare, I was saving it." The Virox tried to disconnect. The interface refused because the human wasn't being scanned. The Virox were invading, and now they were inside. The mind split into 1,000 doors, none marked, all open. They were pulled through at random. First door, a burning cockpit, screams, blinking alerts, static flooding every sense, but it wasn't real, it was wrapped in metaphors. Every flame was a regret, every alarm a memory of someone left behind. Second door, silence, a childhood bedroom, rain on a window, a mother's voice saying goodbye. Third door, math. Endless equations written in blood across the sky, each representing moments the human should have died but didn't. They panicked. This wasn't a scan. This was a counter-invasion. The Virox's third operator entered to assist, and instantly fragmented. Their own codebase scrambled by symbolic logic loops. What they assumed were raw memories were actually traps, philosophical constructs bound to emotional accelerants. One loop showed the alien's own face asking itself, "What is consent?" The question repeated, spiraling until it couldn't answer. It ceased to exist. The others tried to isolate the core self of the human. Instead, they found a locked vault. Carved into it, "Do not open." They opened it. Inside was nothing. Then the human laughed. "Not outside, inside. I was hoping you'd come in. I wanted to see what you looked like." The environment twisted. Now they were in a lecture hall, chalkboards, a diagram of the Virox species labeled and dissected, emotion, language, cognitive architecture. The human knew them. "I studied you," the voice said. "All those probes Earth lost. That was me." One Virox shrieked in confusion. In real space, its body spasmed. Its link cord caught fire. Its brainstem pulsed with rogue memory injection. Another tried to firewall its consciousness, create a pocket to hide in. The human peeled it open like paper. "You thought minds were safe to enter because you've never been inside a human mind that expected you." Everything shifted. No more memories. Now, strategy. The mind space became a war table. Terrain data, probabilities. A list of names, alien and human alike, marked for influence. The Virocs saw their own military designations tagged in red. The human voice sharpened. Your neural network relies on emotional suppression to process memory. That makes you predictable, makes your pathways clean. I don't have that. Pause. I remember everything. Then came the flood. 1,000 disjointed emotions at once. Pain, rage, love, loss, hope, each shaped like a dagger, each sharpened against the Virocs' cold logic. They couldn't parse it, couldn't filter it. Their minds began fracturing. One dropped into a coma. Another burst into open psychic feedback, triggering seizure loops across its fleet's command cluster. Outside, Viroc's crew screamed as their own minds echoed with his laughter. Because the human wasn't defending, he was hacking back. The Viroc's commander issued a Level 1 recall command. All neural linkers were ordered to sever immediately. Full retreat from the human's consciousness. But only 2 of the 7 connected minds responded. The rest were gone, not physically. Their bodies twitched in real space, eyes frozen, drool trailing down twitching mandibles. But inside the interface, their minds no longer registered cohesive identity. Memory blocks collapsed. Identity kernels fragmented into recursive loops. They had not been hacked. They'd been reformatted. The surviving 2 began emergency disconnection procedures, but the protocol failed. The system registered the human's mind as the primary node. He had taken control of the link. He was hosting them. One of the linkers tried to initiate an internal kill switch, a last resort that erased core synapse map data to prevent interrogation. It didn't fire. A voice echoed in the void. Thanks for the access. This part was encrypted. The kill switch had been disabled from inside their own mind. The human had reverse-engineered the logic tree before they could reach it. That wasn't defense. That was dominance. The first surviving Virocs felt the mindscape shrink. No more halls, no more rooms, just a single space, a metal chair, a spotlight, and the human now fully formed in front of him, calm, still, smiling. "Let's talk," the human said. "I want to know how your override works." The Virocs didn't answer, couldn't. His language centers were suspended. The human hadn't silenced him. He'd redirected his ability to speak inward. The alien could talk, but only to himself. And what he heard was not language, it was guilt. Old memories, failed missions, unacknowledged fear. They were weaponized now, echoing in his own voice. "You shouldn't have come in here," the human said, stepping closer. "Your people thought we were linear. Clean, that we stored knowledge in order, but we don't." The Virocs tried to think of an escape route. Instead, the thought looped. Every time he thought exit, he saw a grave. His own. The second survivor had better luck. He tried to brute force his way back to the command vessel's mind hub. But when he opened the exit path, he found thousands of doors, each labeled with a simple phrase. "This is not your way out." He picked one anyway. Found himself in a memory. It wasn't human. It was his own. Only wrong, his mother but with human eyes, his training room but with human instructors. Everything was familiar but infected, personalized corruption. The human didn't just copy his data, he rewrote it. "You came here to extract," the voice said. "I came here to understand. Now I do." The alien began to shake. His self-perception index fluctuated. Core belief matrices destabilized. Every thought he had was second-guessed. Every memory he accessed became suspect. He tried to scream, but inside the mind his own scream sounded like the human's laugh. In real space his body spasmed violently, then slumped. His cognitive pattern, a fingerprint of thought, was now indistinguishable from noise. The Viroc ship entered containment protocol. Too late. Their bridge officers couldn't access their own neural maps. The human's mind had injected looping commands into the synchronization software via the linker's back channels. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Human minds weren't supposed to write code into Viroc systems, but this one did, because this one had studied them. The human didn't just survive. He hijacked the interface layer. In the memory space, he opened another door. This time it wasn't metaphor, it was war footage. Real, unfiltered. Battlefields full of fire and screaming. Moments where human soldiers had watched their world burn, where the only weapon left was stubbornness. Not strategy, endurance. You wanted data, the human said, now standing above the last conscious Virox. You get experience. He placed a hand on the Virox's head. Let's share memories. And then the alien saw everything, every loss, every betrayal, every sacrifice made for a world that barely survived. He felt guilt, not his own borrowed. Human pain wasn't clean, it wasn't quantified, it soaked. The alien drowned in it, tried to pull out, failed. Inside the memory, the human's voice returned. We're messy, we contradict ourselves, we love people we shouldn't, we believe things that aren't true, and we fight for them anyway. Pause. You should have brought armor. The Virox broke. Internally. Externally. Its mind collapsed under the weight of too many feelings it had no architecture to process. It wasn't designed for contradiction. But humans were. The ship's systems shorted. Link hubs melted. One after another, Virox onboard began to scream, not from physical harm but sympathetic resonance. They'd seen glimpses through their comrades' minds. Now they couldn't unsee. The human, still unconscious in real space, twitched once, then smiled. The Virox command ship drifted silently in high orbit. Power was online, systems functional, but no orders came. Every neural interface sat cold. Every command attempt looped back with one phrase: connection refused. Source unknown. The unknown source wasn't external, it was human, not a virus, not malware, something worse. A presence. The last remaining Virox on board, the ship's master tactician, watched in horror as the crew collapsed one by one. Not from injury, from conflict. They weren't killed. They were overwritten. He ordered the mind link severed. Even that command echoed back corrupted. The link was no longer a bridge. It was a possession. Meanwhile, the human remained unconscious in his containment cell, monitored, restrained. But they knew now the restraints didn't matter. The war wasn't happening outside his body. It was inside theirs. The master tactician initiated a full fleetlock memory purge. Burn out all shared networks, erase mission logs, cut all psychic bandwidth. Too late. Across all terminals, one phrase appeared. You entered my mind. Now I know how yours works. Then another. You built your whole species on clarity and consensus. I'm built on noise. One by one, subsystems collapsed, not from attack, from confusion. Each AI assistant failed to parse basic commands. Virox code demanded logic above all. But the human had injected contradictions, core statements that couldn't coexist. Unresolvable paradoxes. Like, victory requires obedience. Obedience requires silence. Silence enables failure. Failure prevents victory. Each line independently rational, together corrosive. Their logic engines failed. One by one, automated subsystems entered recursive shutdown. The master tactician tried to isolate the command decks, manually override mental inputs. A mistake. He linked in. The human was waiting, not as a voice, as a mirror. The Virox stood in an infinite room lined with reflections of himself, all slightly wrong, some older, some younger, some monstrous. Then came the human's voice. You don't know who you are without others thinking for you. The mirrors cracked. Each reflection began speaking a different truth. You led your fleet to slaughter. You feared failure more than understanding. You thought obedience was strength. You never questioned why your kind needed minds like mine to break. The Virox screamed. The sound came from inside him, not a vocal echo, an identity fracture. He collapsed, and the mirrors began laughing. Real space lit up with warning flares. The command ship's core AI, now compromised, activated backup mindspace quarantine. A digital wall sealed off the infected areas. But the infection wasn't static. It adapted. The human had learned the structure of Virox architecture and reshaped it into something incompatible with itself. A synthetic neural paradox. Their own systems were rewriting each other. Inside, the last cognitive remnant of the tactician floated in a void now filled with song. Not melody, not notes, memories, thousands of them. A child's voice learning to lie, a friend's betrayal, a family fading during wartime. He begged for silence. Instead, he heard the human's final whisper. This is what it means to be human. We remember everything, even the pain, especially the pain. You hacked the surface. You never reached the core. The Virok's remnant shattered. No screams, just disconnection. And in that moment the command ship went still. In the cell the human opened his eyes. No alarms triggered. The doors slid open. No one remained to lock them. The human stepped forward, unarmed, unbothered. The ship's lights dimmed as he walked. Not because he damaged the system, because the system followed him. The entire vessel was now synced to his thought patterns. The Virok's neural net built to dominate had been reshaped into an extension of his mind. Not by code, by understanding. He didn't take control. He became control, not through force, through clarity. And clarity, inside a chaotic human brain, was a death sentence for anything built on order. Earth's response ship arrived 72 minutes too late. It wasn't their fault. They had scrambled the moment the distress signal spiked, the moment they lost contact with Recon Operator 17 Kilo. They expected to find him dead, or brain dead, or hollowed out, another victim of Virok's psychic extraction. Instead, they found silence. The Virok's dreadnought floated untouched, no external damage, no signs of battle, but it was cold, not temperature-wise, emotionally. Their scanners showed every life sign aboard had gone flat. Brain activity null. Neural signals scrambled beyond recognition. But there were no wounds, just nothing. The only pulse came from a single cell near the center. They opened the hatch. He was already standing, unchained, calm, awake. He looked at them and said, "Next time don't send just one of me." Medical teams moved in, tried to scan his neural load. The instruments failed. They weren't designed for this, weren't calibrated to map a mind that had restructured alien software from the inside out. The psychologist asked him what happened. He gave no mission log, no heroics, just, "They thought we were simple." And that was all. The debriefs ran for weeks. Earth's military analysts reviewed recovered data from the Virok's ship. What they found stunned them. Not only had the Virok's tried to invade his mind, they'd opened two-way cognitive architecture. In doing so, they allowed him to observe and understand their species at its root. Language, logic, belief, fear. He hadn't stolen anything. He'd been given everything. The Virok's didn't realize it, but they had handed a human the blueprint of their own civilization. Their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their limits. He didn't crash their systems. He simply exposed them to contradictions they weren't built to resolve. A single moment of human cognition was enough to collapse them. In his final interview, Earth's Command Council asked him what he felt when the Virok's entered his mind. He paused, then said, "Relief. I was tired of hiding what we are." The report was buried. The mission scrubbed from public records. Officially, the recon pilot was lost during first contact with a Virok's warship. Unofficially, Earth knew something else now. The Virok's had been beaten. Not with guns, not with fleets, but with thought. And that terrified everyone. Because the galaxy had prepared for human weapons, not for the human mind. The Virok's empire collapsed slowly, not from war, from retreat. They refused further contact with humans, recalled their cognitive strike forces, shut down neural extraction programs. They issued a silent directive: do not enter human minds. They never explained why, but those who saw the recovered logs, those who read the final moments of the linkers, understood. Humanity wasn't just dangerous because of technology. It was dangerous because it adapted internally. What humans felt, they turned into fuel. What they remembered, they never forgot. What they suffered, they built into armor. You could hack their memories, but if you stayed too long, you became part of them, and that was the last thing the Virok's ever wanted. The recon pilot returned to duty, same rank, same clearance, But now no one tried to monitor his thoughts. They knew better. One day, a junior officer asked him what the inside of the Viroc's mind looked like. He smiled, like a puzzle afraid of being solved. "And yours?" the officer asked. He didn't answer, just stared out into the black. And somewhere, across hundreds of systems, the Virocs remembered his laughter,